Party Boys, Video Game Bandit, Clue Book 1, Chapter 8, Forgotten Evidence. Let's see what we know so far, Joe said, plopping down on the couch next to his brother. He flipped open his notebook. Who? Frank leaned over, looking at the page. Joe had crossed out the description Mr. Fun had given them of the girl with the purple shirt and the pink streak in her hair. He crossed out the names Kendall and Lacey, too. Underneath it, he'd written, 2 boys. One held a game under his shirt, one had a squirmy stomach. Blue t-shirt and gray t-shirt or 2 sweatshirts. Both had brown hair or maybe red or brown hair and blonde hair. Frank shook his head. We don't really have much to work with, he said. But I guess we know what the boys aren't on the Bayport Bandits. Otherwise, they would have been wearing the same shirts we are. But besides that, these 2 kids could be anyone. What other clues do we have? Joe turned the page. Just the other detail about the ripped box. We're sure it's not Kendall and Lacey, right? Should we go back to them and see if they might have noticed the 2 boys Kevin and Alana saw? Before Frank could answer, there was a knock at the door. Kevin opened it and poked his head inside. I remember one more thing, he said, slipping in and shutting the door behind him. Kevin sat down on a chair and started talking. As the boys were leaving, I heard them say something about a guy named Mr. Fun. Do you think that was some kind of code? Joe laughed. No, Mr. Fun is a real person. He's the owner of Fun World. You know, that arcade downtown? Kevin's eyes widened. Oh, yes. I used to go there all the time. I was obsessed with the shooting hoops game there. Frank leaned in to listen closer. Do you remember what they said about Mr. Fun? He asked. Kevin shook his head. Joe noticed that the front of his uniform shirt had a white smear on it. It looked like some vanilla frosting. No, just something about Mr. Fun. Then the one kid said, we should be back in half an hour. They were going somewhere. Joe scribbled down everything. Kevin said, hoping that it might be another lead. Did they say where? No, Kevin said. They went into the garage, though. And then I didn't see them again. I still haven't seen them. But I'll tell you, I was right. One of the kids had blonde hair, I swear. I don't know why Alana is arguing with me. Did they seem excited? Happy? Frank asked. Maybe if they knew how the kids were acting, they'd be able to figure out why they had taken the Z Cross. It might have been that they really wanted it just like everyone else does. Or they might have had another reason. Kevin took his glasses off and wiped them with his shirt. His eyes looked much smaller without them. Now that you say that, they actually seem kind of scared, or maybe nervous. I could be wrong, but I remember thinking they didn't look like thieves. Joe wrote down what Kevin said, including the detail about them looking scared or nervous. It was all just Kevin's opinion, not fact. Still, it was helpful to collect any information they could. Do you remember anything else? Joe asked. Kevin shook his head. I think that's it. We should check the garage, Joe said, turning to his brother. As Kevin went back to the kitchen, they headed there. When they got inside, through the side door, they didn't notice anything unusual. All of Mr. Freeman's tools were on the workbench in the corner. Rakes, shovels, brooms were hanging on hooks on the back wall. Mr. and Mrs. Freeman's cars weren't inside, just a few bikes the family had. Ellie's bike had a neon pink stripe on the handlebars. Frank looked around the garage, trying to find anything strange. Whoever the kids were, I don't think they were interested in selling the Z-Cross. Joe checked the rakes and brooms on the wall. Why do you say that? Because all of Mr. Freeman's tools are sitting right here. Power drills, electric saw. If they wanted to make money by selling things, wouldn't they have taken those too? Good point, Joe said, moving over to the bikes. Bingo. Frank turned around. What is it? What'd you find? Joe leaned over 2 of the bikes. They looked like they had just been taken out for a ride. They weren't leaning on the wall where the other 2 were. Instead, they were in the middle of the garage and the kickstands were down. Look right here, he said to one of the baskets. Frank picked up the evidence to examine it. Inside a clear plastic bag were 4 tiny hot dogs. They were the same ones he and Joe had served the guests just a few hours before. Do you think he took these as a snack? Frank asked. He peered through the plastic bag at Joe. I don't know. Maybe, Joe said. In the same basket was a small wallet. Joe opened it, hoping there would be clues inside. There was a few worn baseball cards from some team called the Tigers. There was a smushed piece of bubble gum and $3. Joe flipped through the other compartments, hoping to find anything with a name on it, but there was nothing. There was not even a library card, Joe said, passing the wallet to Frank. Nothing to tell us who it belongs to. Well, whoever took it, they'll come back for it, Frank said. I doubt they'll just leave their wallet behind. What do you think about Mr. Fun? Joe asked. I always liked Mr. Fun, Frank said, turning the wall upside down. 2 pennies fell out. Why would they mention him? Joe asked. Do you think it's just because he was the one who donated the prize? Maybe, Frank said. One of the things for certain, though. Whoever these boys are, they'll be back to get the wallet. We should be here when they do. Joe scanned the garage. A stakeout. That's a great idea. We need places to hide. The boys went to work looking for the best spot they could find. They'd sit quietly hidden somewhere close by and watch. They'd wait as long as they had to, and when their 2 suspects returned, they'd be ready. Chapter 9: The Mystery Man.